somebody asking me, today I got an email from somebody asking me, how do we go about writing a procedure from scratch? Um, I have written procedures for a really long time. I first started writing procedures for the pharmaceutical industry and in labs back in the early 80s, mid 80s, and all the way through the 90s and beyond. So I've been doing this for decades, multiple decades. And it is not something that everybody's good at. Some people are fantastic technical writers and it just comes naturally to them. At least that's how it appears. But this is a skill that you master over time. Technical writing is not like telling a story. It's all about efficiency and making it a very precise and clear document. It's not about add more words. We don't weigh the procedure and say, oh, this is a good procedure because it weighs a lot. In fact, there's this saying, if I had more time, I would have written a shorter letter. Well, that goes for procedures even more so. You want something that's short because then somebody won't be intimidated by it and they might actually read it. That's important. If you want somebody to actually use the procedure, they have to actually read the procedure and understand it. And then they have to be trained on it, which might be more than just reading and understanding. You might have to do a little bit of follow-up. So this is going to be a very quick training, and you might want to watch this more than once and go back and write down some notes and try this. But I'm hoping this will explain to you how I write procedures, and there's not one right way. This is just how I came up with a system for writing these. And keep in mind, I didn't do this alone. I did this with multiple other people that do this for a living. This is what they do best. So this is pretty much what you should expect to see. And I've audited over 1,000 different companies. So this is what I'm used to seeing. This is not something I magically came up with on my own. It's a group effort, and it's very similar to what we see out there when we do audits. So here we go. The person was asking, how I watched your video on 21 CFR 820, and I want to know, how do I create my own procedures from scratch? I've looked at websites. They give me general information about what's needed in the procedure, but they don't tell me how to write the procedure. So the first step is come up with a template, and do not recreate the wheel. Copy somebody else's template. Come up with a really good one like ours. That's why I make it free to download our manager review procedure. Just copy the template that I use for the management review procedure, or watch this video because I'm going to show you step by step all the things that's in my procedure. And you can create your own template if you want to do this instead of buying ours. So if you're on a minimal budget here and you want to do this by scratch yourself, go for it. It took me 6 months. The first time I did this, it's going to take you probably 6 months. So you know what you're getting in for here. Okay. So I'm going to walk through this slide by slide, how I actually create the procedure, and I'm going to share my screen here. So here we go. So number one, this is our procedure. It is our procedure template. It's template 1. It's version 0.6. That's what I do. I create everything with this template from scratch. So if you have a template, then you can make sure all the procedures will be consistent, and the structure makes it easier to write the procedure because I know what I need to work on next to complete the procedure. So the next question is, where should you start? Well, let's start with a flow chart. Begin with the end in mind. At the end of the template, there is a section for a flow chart. Flow charts are not absolutely required, but they are helpful to people that are more process-oriented, and they particularly help auditors that use the process approach. They want to know what the inputs are, they want to know what the outputs are, they want to know what the equipment and information flow is from beginning to end. And if you organize your forms and your procedures in the order that the process actually flows, linearly is ideal, not a spaghetti diagram. You want it to be linear flow if you can. And so you want your procedure to flow linearly, and your flow chart should look linear, both chronological and organization of people and resources and information in a line. So create a flow chart first, get it just the way you want it, and then write your procedure to follow the flow chart. build your forms that you're going to have people fill information on, have that reference the different sections of your flowchart, and try numbering it so you can say, step 7.1 is step 1 of the procedure. 7.2 is step 2 of the procedure. 7.3, guess what? Step 3 of the flowchart and procedures. That's how it's done. So always start with the end in mind, start with a flowchart. Not required, but that's what I recommend. Okay? How do you know this is a controlled document? In a quality system, particularly a medical device quality system that's regulated, you need it to have a controlled document. Some people have to stamp on those. This is not a controlled document if it's printed. That's because they have a virtual quality system or they have an EQMS system. I won't get into the details of that. That's another video. But the way you know is you have a document number. This one is template 001 right up here. And once we actually create the procedure, we delete that and we put SOS and a number here. So that's a controlled number. It has what the name of the procedure is, and it has the version of the procedure, and it has the effective date of the procedure, says who the author is. Those are all things that you table stakes for something that's a controlled document. If you don't know who wrote it, you don't know who approved it, you don't know when it's effective, and you don't know what version it is, and you don't know what the document number is, how the hell do you know whether it's controlled or not? So that's how you know. Next, how do you know what the procedure is about? And I'm having a little trouble with my mouse, probably needs charging. Almost certainly that's what the problem is. So let's see if this fixes it. There we go. Okay, so how do you know what the procedure is about? Purpose and scope. Could you have one section that said purpose and scope? Sure. Why do most people separate them? They're two basically slightly different concepts. What is the purpose of the procedure? You do not have to copy and paste out of the standard, but if the standard says the organization shall establish a procedure that defines the process for controlling documents, you might write something instead of copying word for word that say the purposes of this procedure is to define the process for controlling documents. Done. Very short. Shorter is better. If I had more time, I'd write a shorter letter. But as you build experience, you get more adept at writing it first try in very few words. Easy to understand that sentence, almost impossible to misunderstand. Then the scope. This procedure covers this. This procedure does not cover this. There might be related topics that are covered in another document. My favorite example here, design controls. We have design transfer. We have design change. We have design the design process when we're first designing a product. Do we have them all covered in this procedure, or do we split some of them out in other procedures? For example, design change in our system is SOS 006. Design control is 008. Two different procedures, so we explain that in the scope. You might have a medical device reporting procedure for adverse event reporting. You might have one for each country. In that particular case, sorry about that. In that particular case, you might have each procedure is for a different country or different set of regulations. So you want to say what the scope of the adverse event reporting is, what country it's specific to. You might also say that this meets this requirement in the manual or this requirement in a standard. That might be another thing you put in the scope to understand what it's applicable to. If you had different standards, like we're going to have ISO 27001 for IT security, and we're going to have aerospace, and we're going to have automotive, you might have different standards, so you might have different procedures for different ones. The next section, the quality manual content. I'm an auditor, so I always start with the manual because it's organized according to the standard and gives me lots of summary information. If you are building a quality system from scratch, you don't want to start with the manual. Do not start with the manual. All the auditors will tell you to start with the manual because that's what they want. But that's not what you want. You want to write each of your procedures for each of the processes as you're building that process. And the content that you're going to want to put in the manual, put that in here as a placeholder. And then when you're done writing drafts of all the procedures, then extract each of those, like cut, not copy, cut those sections out and put them in the appropriate sections of the manual, and you will be good. But trying to write the whole entire manual at once is like trying to keep the whole entire quality system in your head at once. I can do that because I've done this so many times. You're doing this for your first time, do not do that approach. Just write one section for that procedure at a time, and then you'll cut it out and put it in your manual. That's how you can do it. If it's just too complicated, just leave this out. When you've written your whole quality system, then tackle the manual, but your manual will be a little bit harder to write that way. But that's okay. At least you're getting the procedures done early, which is the important part. But when I first created the quality system, I created the quality manual content as I wrote each procedure, rather than writing the quality manual, and then revised the whole quality manual again. So that section is not required to be included in there. It was to help people write their quality system or quality manuals. Next, reference and relationship. So, and I skipped the slide. So this was the little banner here. It says, where does the quality manual content go? You cut it out of here and put it in your quality manual, which will be a separate controlled document. A lot of people call it QM001, really novel, or some people just call it QM. Some people call it document 0. However, you're going to number your procedures. The next one here is, so what needs to be included in the references section? Typically, people here reference the controlled standards. I'm sorry, everybody. I way underestimated how long this is going to take. So I'm going to have to do this as a live stream later on today, and I'll give it the appropriate amount of time and cover this. But for those of you who are listening, just check back later, and I'll have a full recording later. Sorry about that. I'll try again later. Bye-bye.